All of us have been called to help humanity face its biggest challenges. You, listening to my voice today, you have been called to help humanity face its biggest challenges. The purpose of your life, the purpose that God has spoken into your heart, has to make a difference, will make a difference in the world around you if you allow God to enter your heart, speak His vision and His word into your life. That call, when it comes, is just so practical and so personable. But boy, it is hard. You see, the challenges of the world exist because the world is in trouble. The status quo got us to a point where there are things in this world that is about to break. When the call comes, we need to understand that when God calls you to change something, to change the status quo, that you're going to need tenacity and you're going to need guts and you are going to need grit. Today I want to talk about that journey, staying the course, the persistence and the tenacity required to change the world around us. In my life and the calling that God has placed on my life, there's been many times where I nearly jumped ship. But probably the story in the Bible that just shaped me and helped me so many times along the way is the story of Moses. Just be aware of the fact that Moses was called very personally by God. And Moses was called because God saw something in him that he didn't see himself. God saw him as a leader, but where He got him at the burning bush, Moses didn't see that himself. God saw him as a leader. Why? Because he had training to be a leader in the court of Pharaoh. God takes him and He sets him on a course to take a whole tribe, the tribe of Israel, from Egypt into the promised land. He walks and he talks, and the tribe moans and groans. The amount of effort that this man Moses had to go through to take a tribe from Egypt to the promised land with all their sin and all their complexities must have tired him out no end. He was a leader under fire. So many times the tribe tried to evict him. At some point in time, the people that worked for him, Joshua and Caleb, that tribe tried to stone them. He had to fight back, and he always just interceded for those people, for the Israelites in front of God. At some point, he just had it. At some point, when the Israelites were moaning about water again, and they were forgetting all the miracles that God had done in their existence and in this journey, they said, but there's no water, and Moses interceded with God, and God said, there's water in this rock. Speak to the rock, and water will come forth. Out of absolute frustration, Moses struck that rock twice. Water did flow forth, but God stepped in and He said, because you struck that rock and you didn't speak to the rock, you will not see the promised land. You see, it's at this point in the story where being on a journey with God, being on a journey with calling, making a difference in this world, it becomes so hard that many times we get so frustrated. And I read this piece in the Bible and I said, God, okay, but this poor man was at his wit's end. And now the thing that God told him was that you will not go into the promised land as a result of this sin. When I read that piece in the Bible, I said, okay, so God, there's going to come a time where you're going to look over my shoulder and you're going to say, okay, but you're not what I want you to be. And then recently, God just encouraged me with this. And that is that in Matthew 17, at the Mount of Transfiguration, that was the point at which Moses was taken into the promised land. That mountain that Jesus was at, that mountain where Jesus' normal body, his human body, was transformed and prepared for death and a heavenly body, there were only a few people at that moment. The three close to Jesus, Peter, James, and John were there, and then Elijah and Moses. Moses was brought into the promised land, but not necessarily in the time frames that he expected. I want to encourage you that when God calls you to shift something in this world and it just gets so hard and it gets so frustrating, just keep on at it. Why? Because we should not put our time frames on God's calling, on God's outcome. Just stay true to the course, stay true to His calling. Walk this road with God, because I promise you, God will not make a promise and will not have that word come back to Him void. I want to encourage you to steer the course, steer the calling, and stick to God.